Is this the strongest case the government could come up with?
Well, I think it's the strongest case that they could bring at this time. It's also a case that is simple in the sense that it didn't name all of the other potential defendants that could have been included. For example, all of those individuals that are named, but without name actually, as co-conspirators could have been included in the same indictment. But I think strategically what they did was to bring everything that they had now against Donald Trump so that they could get this to trial as quickly as possible. I think Jack Smith is going to push immediately for a trial, not much longer than the 90 days required by the Speedy Trial Act, which, by the way, a defendant is entitled to a speedy trial, but also the government is entitled to a speedy trial. And I think what you're going to see is that tomorrow at the arraignment, they're going to announce that they're basically producing all of the discovery immediately, including witness testimony and witness statements, which is really unprecedented. I never did that as a prosecutor. But I think what they're going to try and do is get this case to trial in January or February of next year, prior to the case that's scheduled in New York with the Manhattan DA, and prior to the time that the classified document case is scheduled in May in Miami.
Well, Trump's lawyer, though, John Lauro, is talking about the fact that the government had 3 years to build this case. They want a much longer timeline. And he says that when Jack Smith comes out and says we want a speedy trial, he says that's up to the defendant. What do you see the timeline in this case? How is the Trump legal team going to try to slow it down?
I don't think they're going to be able to slow this one down. The government had 3 years to investigate it, but all of these facts were out in the open. Trump knew about all of this almost immediately after January 6th. There was a committee hearings, the January 6th committee. A lot of that evidence is mirrored in this indictment. There are no real big surprises here to Donald Trump. There's no reason why this case can't move ahead quickly with just one defendant, no classified documents like the other case in Miami. There's nothing complicated about this. It's purely based on witness testimony, tape recordings of Donald Trump, who will be the star witness in this case, and the various documents that will corroborate all of these different witnesses. So this is not a very complicated case that can't be tried in 3 or 4 weeks. In January or February.
Wow. Nick Akerman, I had a chance to speak today with someone I suspect you know well, certainly worked with, and you actually helped to send to jail. That would be John Dean, the former White House counsel under President Nixon, Watergate whistleblower. Right. I spoke with him on Bloomberg Sound on the radio today about his thoughts in comparing this case to Watergate. I'd love for you to react to what he said. Here he is.
Sure.
I think it is uncharted territory. I heard a historian do the analogy that Nixon's Watergate was like a lightning bug. Trump's behavior is like a lightning storm in that it threatens the entire structure of our democracy.
Do you agree with John Dean there, Nick?
Yeah, I think I do. I mean, Trump has really created a Watergate on steroids here. He's really gone after the heart of the system, attacking our processes, attacking the way that we choose our presidents, attacking the normal, peaceful transfer of power. What he has done is basically tried to derail the American system and our American way of choosing presidents and peacefully transferring from one to the other in a regular election. And he's done everything. It's not just that he lied about it, but he took all kinds of actions trying to get state legislators to rescind Biden's vote, trying to get state officials like Raffensperger in Georgia to rescind the vote, creating false electors, trying to get his own vice president to essentially rescind the vote. This was probably one of the greatest threats our democracy has ever faced.
We actually heard from Vice President Mike Pence earlier today, speaking in a Fox News interview. I want you to take a listen to what he said.
Irrespective of the indictment, I want the American people to know that I had no right to overturn the election. And then on that day, President Trump asked me to put him over the Constitution, but I chose the Constitution.
That was actually at the event he was giving today as he's on the campaign trail. But can you put into context the way you just did regarding the Nixon case, Watergate, and Trump and these indictments, what history may reflect on Vice President Pence?
Well, I think Vice President Pence was exactly right. I mean, he stood up to Donald Trump. He may not have stood up to him, the 4 years prior on a number of other issues, but this was a pretty critical issue. And I think on this issue, history is going to treat Mike Pence pretty kindly as somebody who, when he was under the gun, under the pressure, stood up to Donald Trump and basically stopped this entire horror show from occurring. If he had decided not to accept the votes that were duly filed in those 6 battleground states, or if he had sent those back to state legislators, we would have been in a absolute extreme constitutional crisis that would have sent this country into a tailspin. So, yes, I have to give Mike Pence a lot of credit here. Now, again, there are a lot of other Republicans that have not stood up to Donald Trump. In Watergate, the reason that Richard Nixon ultimately resigned was because Barry Goldwater, the dean of the Republican caucus in the U.S. Senate, gathered together other Republican senators, went to the Oval Office and said, look, the jig is up. Time for you to resign. Time to get out of Dodge. You've got to resign from the presidency. And that's what he did. At least Nixon had enough sense to know when to leave town. Donald Trump does not.